4 types of introverts. When you hear the word introvert, you might think of someone who's painfully shy and avoids human interaction at all costs. You might even immediately identify with the word because you prefer staying in with a good book rather than going out. But those associations tend to be a rather simplistic view of introversion. In the past, people often associate being introverted as a form of behavioral defect when really, introverts just operate differently from extroverts. Here's a fun fact to pepper in at your next dinner party. Not all introverts are the same. Sure, we may share similarities, like feeling drained by social events and parties. But given that there are actually 4 specific types of introverts, we clearly have our own differences as well. Generally, what sets us apart are the guiding reasons for what makes us introverted in the first place. Signs you might be an introvert. Around 1/3 to 1/2 of all people in the US are introverts. Though it looks different in everyone, introverts have many of the same patterns of behavior. In general, introverts need quiet to concentrate, are reflective, are self-aware, take time making decisions, have few friendships, but are very close with these friends, daydream or use their imaginations to work out a problem, retreat into their own mind to rest. Here are 4 types of introverts. 1. Social introverts, the classic type of introvert we all know. A social introvert is someone who categorically prefers to spend time alone. They will go out of their way to ensure that they have the amount of time to themselves that they need. But if they do socialize, it will only be with a very close-knit group of friends. The reason a social introvert chooses to live this way is they truly enjoy their own company and feel emotionally drained if they spend too long in the presence of others. It's not the same as shyness or anxiety. Social introversion is a preference, which is often confused for a sense of aloofness or indifference. Social introverts are often misconstrued as shy and timid in social settings, but that's not always the truth. If you happen to be a social introvert, it just means that you prefer to be alone at home or only go out with your select few of best buddies rather than partying with a large crowd of people. Being around people does not necessarily trigger your anxiety. You merely revel the comfort of your solitude and would choose to stay home with your nose in a book. Social introversion is the typical definition of introversion, in that a preference for socializing with small groups instead of large ones. Or sometimes, it's a preference for no group at all. Solitude is often preferable for those who score high in social introversion. They prefer to stay home with a book or a computer, or to stick to small gatherings with close friends, as opposed to attending large parties with many strangers. Common traits and habits: prefer tiny intimate gatherings, will happily go on a solo date or vacation, require alone time to recharge, especially in a relationship, will accept social invitations with no intention to show up. Self-care tips for social introverts: embrace your introverted nature that requires you to take some alone time to charge your energy. Don't overexert yourself at an event just to make others happy. Always allocate some time away from all the noise after a long day of events. Always keep in touch with your family or a small group of friends who understands and accepts you for the way you are. 2. Thinking introverts. Thinking introverts are quiet genius types. They love hypothesizing, creating, ideating, and storytelling to such an extent that it dominates much of their mental space, thus to prioritizing other people as an unintended effect. These introverts might come across as aloof or spacey to anyone who can't hold their attention. When they do talk, though, people tend to cling to their every word. A thinking introvert can be an invaluable asset in regards to adding much-needed thoughtfulness and creativity to social settings. The thinking introvert is very cognitive by nature, often intellectual. This type of introvert is often at peace when studying, reading, learning, researching, and investigating. Introverts of this type are prone to getting lost in their thoughts and may actually mentally disappear from conversations due to a retreat into the mental world. The thinking type is someone who spends a lot of time in their head. You could also think of it as a form of intellectual introversion. This person likes to think about everything they see and hear. They have a rich and complex inner world, which is unsurprising given it's where they spend most of their time. But this is far from being a negative thing. The introspective type is extremely self-reflective. They are adept at analyzing social dynamics and very self-aware of the effect their presence has on a given situation. Some people have claimed that introspective types are lost in their own fantasy world, when, in actuality, they're engaged in deep critical thinking. Common traits and habits: more introspective than the average introvert, will lean toward activities that provide a mental haven for thinking, studying, reading, researching, musical pursuits, or other creative activities. Generally not reactive and will often pause to think before offering a response to a question. Super self-aware. Self-care tips for thinking introverts. Make time and space to reflect on your thoughts and emotions. Pursue your hobbies and creativity by developing a schedule you can follow. Leverage on your strength. Venture into a career that is perfect for introverts like you. As you're always deep in your thoughts, don't lose touch with reality. Build meaningful relationships to keep you inspired. 3. Anxious introverts. Unlike social introverts, anxious introverts may seek out solitude because they feel awkward or self-conscious around other people, because they're not very confident in their own social skills. But often, their anxiety doesn't fade when they're all alone. This kind of introversion is defined by a tendency to ruminate, to turn and over in their minds the things that might or could or already have gone terribly wrong. This can be a real problem if you're an introvert who needs plenty of downtime to recharge. This doesn't necessarily mean you're attending lots of social events. Instead, you may feel a compulsion to always be getting things done or staying on top of things. Staying busy distracts you from your anxiety and gives you a sense of control. You might be a people pleaser. You're so afraid of letting others down that you work hard to make everyone around you happy, even if it means sacrificing your own needs. The anxious introvert is someone who has genuine struggles interacting with people where it can border on social anxiety. The actions of this individual are centered around their perceived inability to function in large gatherings of people. They will often decline invitations to events, not because they prefer their own company, but because they're all too aware of the high state of anxiety that being around others will create for them. This type of introvert often finds themselves stuck in a loop. They will imagine their future experiences based on their previous interactions, rooting them in a mindset of low self-esteem. Cognitive behavioral therapy can go a long way to breaking these negative thought patterns. Common traits and habits. More introspective than the average introvert, will lean toward activities that provide a mental haven for thinking. Studying, reading, researching, musical pursuits, or other creative activities. Generally not reactive and will often pause to think before offering a response to a question. Super self-aware. Self-care tips for anxious introverts. Take note of situations that make you anxious and read up on ways and methods you can use to manage your anxiety. Prioritize your well-being by exercising, getting a balanced diet, and practicing mindfulness. This may be tough, but always remember that in the end, things will be all right. Even if it's not the end. Open up to family and close friends for support and reassurance. Alternatively, you may also seek professional advice from your school counselor, therapist, medical doctor, or even a psychiatrist. 4. Restrained introvert. You could also just call this reserved. Restrained introverts prefer think before they speak or act. They also might take a while to get going. They can't, for instance, wake up and immediately spring into action. At first glance, restrained introverts seem like the traditional definition of an introvert, because they can be shy and guarded when they first meet someone and might not appear outgoing. However, with time, they'll open up as they get to know people and let their personalities fully come out. Restrained introverts are often the grounding forces in others' lives, the voices of a reason that balance out more impulsive and reckless personalities. They can also be slower to respond to situations because they have a lot more internal dialogue. They tend to think before they speak and choose their friends, hobbies, and relationships with care. The restrained type is a little less known but is actually quite common if you pay attention. This describes someone who holds themselves back and takes a little while to warm up to people before completely putting themselves out there. These people aren't afraid of social interactions. Quite the opposite. Most of them do enjoy meeting new people, but they're usually very selective about who they open up to, choosing to reserve the largest part of themselves for those who have earned their trust. This can make a restrained introvert seem mysterious, but they're simply taking a back seat and observing before they take action. They always think before they speak, and once you have earned their trust, you've earned it for a long time. Common traits and habits. Move at a slower, more methodical pace in all things. Tend to enjoy predictable activities, often unemotional. Self-care tips for restrained introverts. Allocate additional time in the morning so that you have sufficient time to get ready and not get overwhelmed by the hustle and bustle of the day. Spend some me time towards the end of the day, perhaps with a cup of decaffeinated tea to unwind and distress. When communicating your ideas, take your time to organize your thoughts before you begin. Be sure to slow down and take little pauses in between, or take a deep breath. If you have to, cultivate an introvert-friendly lifestyle to reduce stress and avoid isolating yourself from your family and close friends. Nowadays, we often meet someone who needs hours alone every day, who loves quiet conversations about feelings or ideas, and can give a wonderful presentation to a big audience, but seems awkward in groups and maladroit at small talk, who has to be dragged to parties and then needs the rest of the day to refresh. People will tell this kind of individuals is too serious or so mellow, and ask them if they are okay. In these situations, chances are that we have an introvert on our hands. So if you enjoyed watching this video and learning about different types of introverts, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so that you get notified as soon as we upload a video.